The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of WBGR Network. Any questions or concerns about what is said should be directed to the show host, whose information will be provided upon request.
Good evening and welcome to Q's on the Move, a weekly podcast highlighting the mentoring efforts of the men of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. My name is Deontay Bird. I'll be your host for this evening, and today we will be featuring the Lambda Gamma Gamma chapter of Omega Psi Phi and their male mentoring program, Manhood 101. I am joined by two members of the Lambda Gamma Gamma chapter, Brother Namdi Jadani and Brother Terry Chappelle. We also have with us in the studio today a graduate of Lambda Gamma Gamma's male mentoring program, Manhood 101, Justin Howard. The Manhood 101 program was started 8 years ago at Charles Herbert Flowers High School by Principal Dr. Gorman Brown and was the brainchild of Brother Blue Colquitt. In those 8 years, the program has blossomed outside of the walls of Flowers High School and now caters to black male boys, high school age, all over the Washington, D.C. area. With my panel of guests today, we'll be getting some input from them on how they were introduced to the male mentoring program and some personal insight from one of the graduates of the program of how he matriculated through Manhood 101. The Lambda Gamma Gamma chapter enforces a committee called the Assault on Illiteracy, and Manhood 101 falls underneath that umbrella. So with that being said, I will get some brief introductions from my guests, starting on my right with Brother Namdi Jadani. Brother, how did you come into the mentoring program, and give us a brief background on yourself?
Oh, man. Welcome, folks. My name is Namdi Jadani, as Brother Deontay Bird mentioned. So I was introduced to the program from the Lambda Gamma Gamma chapter, and it was something. So I've always been into mentoring, tutoring, just from a young age, from junior high school. I used to tutor actually at my church, at New Bethel Baptist Church. So I would come home from school. I went to Dunbar Senior High School, the mighty Christmas Tide. If you're a fellow Dunbar student, I'm holding it down. So I would come back from school, and I would go to the church, and we had a tutorial program. So we would have kids with their homework. It was more of a mentoring session. So I kind of grew into mentorship and just being in the mindset of kind of giving back into the community. So I was exposed to it at a young age, and just hearing about Manhood 101 has been something that's been a gratifying experience. Been lucky to be a part of the program. Been lucky to have such an impact on our young men moving into starting the new decade, and it's such an experience. So that's pretty much how I got started.
All right, Brother Chappelle, how about yourself?
Yes, my name is Terry Chappelle. I first came into the fraternity in 1979, so it's been 40 years plus with my affiliation with Omega Psi Phi. During the early years, I actually was coaching basketball through the Maryland National Park and Planning Commission, and that was my first introduction into dealing with youth from the perspective of being a coach and advisor and being a help as far as guiding young men into the early years of manhood. I came to this program through the chapter via another brother, Charles Canty, and we actually used to work out together, and he mentioned it to me one day at the gym and said, maybe I'd like to just stop by. It's been about 5 years now. It's one of the most rewarding experiences I've had in my years of working with young men. I feel as though I have some things to offer, and we definitely have a population of men out here that need our advice, need our guidance, need our motivation, and it's a definite need, and we, as black males, we need to fulfill that need. Nobody's going to do it for our kids but us when it comes down to it. So we have to protect our base and help nurture it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just a more brief history on the Manhood 101 program. Like I said, it was implemented at Charles Herbert Flowers High School back in 2012. The principal there member of our fraternity and our chapter as well, Brother Dr. Gorman Brown, implemented the program. And at that time, we had about a dozen, maybe 20 students. And the majority of the students that were enrolled in the program, it was mandatory that they attend the program. These were students that were having a tough time, maybe making the transition from junior high school to high school, having a tough time with their grades, some on the verge of expulsion. And Brother Dr. Gorman Brown made it mandatory for them to attend. As the years progressed, and brothers, you can attest to this, as the years progressed, the program continued to grow, and like I said, it now has expanded outside the walls of Charles Herbert Flowers High School, and now we cater to any males that show up at our doors. We meet every Wednesday during the school year from 7 to 9 p.m., and we talk about a vast array of topics. But let's hear from one of the students that actually matriculated from the program, Mr. Jordan Howard, a proud alumni of the program. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then kind of get into how you got introduced to the program and what you're doing in life right now.
Okay, awesome. My name is Justin Howard. I'm a recent graduate of Hampton University. Go Pirates. I majored in Bachelor's of Science in Cybersecurity, and I currently am a federal subcontractor doing cybersecurity work with the Navy. I first got introduced to Manhood 101 in 2013. I had a friend that was already in the program by the name of Kurt Spencer. He was like, hey, come to Manhood 101. It's a great time, good experience. You learn a lot. I'm like, sure. So I gave it a shot, and ever since then I've been, stuck with it, and I absolutely love the program so much where even now that I've graduated high school, graduated college, I still come back every Wednesday and give my input, give my insight, and just try to help these young black men, increase their confidence going throughout the world.
Okay, I'm going to stay with you, Justin.
Okay.
While enrolled in the program, what was one of your major takeaways that you think the program offered you while you were in high school?
I would say my major takeaway was the authenticity of the black men that were in the room. Also, at the time, I didn't know how big of a network was in the room as well. I mean, I would go to the program like, oh, okay, these are older guys just, teaching us about different topics, how to matriculate and navigate through college and your careers. But at the time, I didn't realize how big of a pull of a network, to the point where I've called Deontay Bird several times in college, like, hey, I need a recommendation letter for an internship. So it's things like that. Well, if I didn't have the opportunity to meet Deontay Bird through that program and had the opportunity to call you, who knows where I'd be today. So, yes, definitely.
And kind of piggybacking on that, I think probably some of the biggest challenges we have as mentors is trying to get these young men to realize the potential and the resources they have in the room. I mean, you have a lot of mentors own their own businesses, that come from different vast of life in terms of career experiences, just wisdom. And I think for me, the biggest frustration is trying to get them in a position where they take advantage of the resources and the help, and not be in a position where you see things afterwards and thinking back, you know what, maybe I should have paid attention, maybe I should have reached out, to some of these mentors and kind of just made sure that I stayed in contact, made sure that I paid attention, made sure I got their name, made sure that phone number that I was able to contact them and say, hey, that internship that you spoke about, look, I'm available and I want to take this serious. So I think to me that's the frustrating part, is realizing the potential, realizing the opportunity. And for some of those who do catch it, like Justin, who do come back and say, you know what, look, I'm looking at y'all from peer to peer, eye level, you need to understand how imperative this program is to you. So I think that's probably the most gratifying part, is when you see these boys come back as mentors and we stand back and we watch them, talk to them as if, look, I was there 2 years ago. I think that's probably the most rewarding aspect of this program. What do you think, Bert? Like that?
Absolutely. I agree 110%. And that kind of leads me to my follow-up question with Brother Chappelle, because being a brother coming from a generation or two before my line brother and I always hear older gentlemen talk about the importance of this program and the fact that you wish that you had a program like this when you were coming up through the public school systems. So could you speak on that a bit?
This program right now is so critical for our young black men, because as Brother Bird was saying, during the time frame when I was younger, this didn't exist. Hopefully you had influences within the school via your coaches, maybe one or two male teachers, maybe of an affiliation in a church with men within the church, the men in your neighborhood, hopefully. And that was sometimes positive, and it could be otherwise as well. But right now, this is a dedicated situation where you have guys that come in every Wednesday evening from all walks of life and all types of experiences. And those experiences have been positive, but they've also provided the experience of holes that you can step into that we're trying to tell these guys not to step into. We've had situations where we have lost jobs. We have had situations where we've been in, harm's way with the authorities out here.
Absolutely.
How to handle yourself in front of the police. And then basic things, how to tie a tie.
Right.
Okay. You'd be amazed at how many young men out here are looking for that guidance but don't have it. And as Nnamdi had spoke about before, please, we're begging them, please take advantage of this. I want you to come out here. I look forward to coming out there every Wednesday, but please go out here and take advantage of it.
And I want to say, I think that segues into, because he covers some of the things that we talk about when we discuss the Manhood 101. So Justin, I guess you can talk a little bit about in terms of what
absolutely.
you learned, what you experienced, some of the things that we taught you in Manhood 101.
So I remember, I would say, like, my first 2 weeks in Manhood 101, the topic was how to conduct yourself when you get pulled over by a police officer. And in that moment, just to hear the passion that they really want us to understand, like, these are real life phenomenons. How to tie a tie, going to a corporate office or a professional setting. What should your resume look like? How to even stand up and talk and be able to project yourself and be able to do the basic communication skills that is pretty much a necessity of life. So just learning those things and being able to grow in the program kind of molded me into the man that I am today.
Wow.
These are just invaluable skills that have stretched me a lifetime throughout college. I mean, I was able to go to college like, all right, cool, I went to Manhood 101. I at least have fundamentals of how to go throughout life. Of course you're going to learn, have bumps and bruises along the road, but I was at least like, okay, if I get pulled over by an officer, I remember, all right, Coach Blue told me, do this, do this, do this. I know if I have to go to a job interview, I know, white shirt, know how to tie a tie properly. So these are just things that are pretty much essential fundamentals to being a black man, I would say.
Absolutely. I think in the Manhood 101, I can speak for my brothers on my right and my left that first and foremost, I think we stress education above all when coming through the program, but we also cover a vast array of topics. We talk about financial literacy. Like I said, we stress education above all. We talk about career preparedness, resume, how to balance your finances,
Time management,
right? Time management,
life after college,
exactly.
College, you don't.
Developing your personal relationship. My brother to my left does an excellent presentation on controlling your emotions and how to identify with your emotions. I think as black men, that's very huge because that's something that we battle with. That's being an emotional person is something that's kind of looked down on in our community. So,
Right.
Yeah, and let me be frank and be honest and candid. So nothing we do at Manhood 101 is novel. We're not doing anything that's never been done before. This is not brand new. It's a mentorship, but it's who's doing it. Man of Omega, Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and it's how we do it. We don't take the classroom approach. We don't take a lecturing approach. We don't want these boys, or these young men, I should keep saying, to feel like they're done with school and then they go into another classroom setting. The type of approach and the philosophy we use is more so of a peer-to-peer. It's more so of talking to you how you would want somebody to speak to you if they were trying to communicate to you. So we talk to them real about things that are happening, and a lot of times we try our best to communicate them in a language they understand. We're not going to try to pretend to be your parents. That is not what Manhood 101 is for. And in a lot of situations, women aren't allowed in the sessions because it's a mentoring program to raise young men. So there are certain things I feel like certain fundamentals and certain principles that I feel creates that intimate climate to be able to nurture these boys, these young men, so that way they can kind of develop from that foundation. So that's a lot of the
think
focus.
also, if you think about it, the name says it all. Manhood 101.
Absolutely.
And when you think in terms of that, we are preparing young boys to become capable, responsible, thoughtful men. That's the top of it right there. To be productive within, number one, their families, their household, within their communities, and to plot out and map a future for themselves as well as the generations that come behind them.
Absolutely.
You know, this is so important, and we plant these seeds in their mind. We tell them about the things that we've encountered, but we also pull out the feedback within them. We want to know what's going on in their mind because our thought process that we have, and even the thought process that we had years ago, does not compare to what they're going through right now.
Absolutely.
And we learn from them, and hopefully the gravitation or the exchange from us will help foster their future.
Excellent point. And I want to kind of piggyback on what Brother Chappelle just now brought up, is that as much as we use Manhood 101 as a teaching session for us to impart our wisdom on the generation coming up behind us, is that we learn a lot from their generation as well. I think too often older generations preach that been there, done that mentality, and that automatically tends to put the younger generation in a defense, type of mode where they feel like they can't open up and be, open about their emotions, what they're going through at home, what they're going through at school. But I think the approach that we take, knowing that we can learn from them as well, opens them up to to be able to express themselves more. And being a part of an older generation now, I can honestly say that, we've been there and done some of those same things, but this younger generation lives in a completely different time frame with this advent of social media. Exactly. So, Justin, I wanted you to speak on that a bit.
Sure.
How do you think that plays a part in growing up and approaching manhood? The fact that, a second split decision second can go viral. Right. People make themselves readily available on social media. Right. Could you speak to that a bit?
So I say social media, growing up, in the heart of the social media era, it's been a twofold. I mean, I've found a lot of positive things on social media, and I've also seen a lot of negative things on social media. So, and I think that the message of what it takes to be a man, it kind of gets misconstrued through social media as well. People might see images of a celebrity doing something that only a celebrity might be entitled to do, or they'll see somebody in a different walk of life, like, okay, that's the type of man I want to be. So I think it's a lot of comparison or a lot of looking up to, like, maybe I want to be like this man, maybe I want to be like this man, or I like this trait, or I like this trait. And I feel like social media takes the core value of life away. In my era, how often it is used, and to tie back to the mentoring program, like you come there, there's no social media, and it's like, wow, like I just done spent 2 hours on social media thinking this is what a black man is supposed to do, or this is how a black man is supposed to be, and then to come and then learn, well, no, this is how you should approach this situation. Or, I mean, like I said, it has its benefits where it might be a situation online, a black man being harassed by an officer. How would you go about the situation? So, I mean, it's definitely been a twofold learning process.
Nam, do you want to speak on the social media aspect in today's society at all?
I'm not that old, but I think we came up like around the same type of era. There was no Instagram, no Twitter, no Snapchat. I think Black Planet was the hottest thing to slice bread back then. You know what I mean? So, but the dissemination and the ingestion of information wasn't this quickly digested by a mass of people. I mean, now everything moves so fast, and I think just like Justin communicated, that could be, it has its pros and its cons. I mean, I think it's launched a lot of people's careers. People who have made a living out of YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. People have used it as an information or a sharing platform, a sharing source, entertainment. Mm-hmm. And then people have used it in ways that can be kind of productive to society, kind of productive to, and a community that's trying to inject positivity into young men and young women and people that are trying to do things with their lives. So social media is a tool like anything else that's come before it. It's either you can use it to power, to influence, and to better people, better yourself, or you can use it to do harm. And I think that never changes no matter what era you're in. It just depends on how it's utilized and how it's consumed. And it was different from, for the rest of us growing up and versus how, it's utilized now with Justin and his age group when he was growing up. So it's a powerful tool, and it has great, like they say, with whom much responsibility is given, much is
expected, required.
Expected and required.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I just think that social media can sometimes put unfair pressure on all of today's youth, male and female especially, painting a false narrative on what reality is. You have kids trying to live up to these social media influencer norms, which are a complete false representation of reality. Right. And I think a young, impressionable mind looks at that information and looks at their current state, where they're at in their life, and think, oh, wow, I can never measure up. But what they don't really understand, that what they're looking at is
the failures they might have incurred, or social media don't portray the whole story. It's like a glimpse of a highlight.
Right. It's a highlight reel.
Yeah,
right.
It's unrealistic. And so our job as mentors is not to tell you can't be a dancer, a football player, a basketball player. That's not what we're here to do. Right. Our job is to tell you have the potential to recognize your abilities, so you're being realistic about your odds. If you want to be a football player, that's fine, but have a backup plan. Right. So if football don't work out, go to college. If college is not your thing, join the military. If it's not your thing, nurture your craft, become a businessman. Go into things that that will allow you, that inspire you to live out your passion in a career field. So it's not my job to tell you don't be that football player. No, we want you to do that. Our job is to make sure that you are focused on what's realistic, what's achievable, what your potential is, so that way you can maximize your potential to reach those goals. So,
Brother Chappelle, you want to piggyback on that at all? What do you think that the main goal of this program is?
I think within our program, we push our guys or advise them to be able to survive out here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We want you to achieve your dreams, your aspirations. We want you to prosper, but you have to have some basic skills out here to take care of yourself. And we let them know that, at some point, you're going to have to leave the nest. You're going to have to establish roots. You're going to have to provide a home for the family that hopefully you will have. And that's a process that does not start when, you go out 10 years from now and say, okay, I'm going to settle down. You start doing those things that build a foundation now. In the 9th grade, the 10th grade, the 11th grade, where grades are pretty much your pay for the work that you put in.
Absolutely.
You have to understand the relationship right here that you have with school. Right. And the patterns and the habits that you establish now. I used to hear a coach of mine say years ago that how you practice is how you will play. If you practice in a shabby way and half-ass, so to speak, then come game time, those habits are going to transfer right into the game.
Absolutely.
So, those are the values that we instill within the young men, and we hope it carries them forward.
Right. I agree 110%. And just to kind of further explain that point, I like the point that Namdi made in a previous interview, that the entire point of the Manhood 101 program is to provide these kids with the cheat code, right? All we're doing is standing in front of them and saying, hey, we know some of the hardships that you're going to face being a black man growing up in this country. We know some of the obstacles that you will meet. All we're doing is providing these kids with a roadmap, being that bridge builder, so their road and their path to manhood won't have as many pitfalls as the generation before them, to make their path to manhood a bit smoother. So the brothers that come from my generation, our generation, stood on the shoulders of brothers from Brother Terry Chappelle's generation. And now young men like Justin Howard should be able to stand on our shoulders and provide that caveat, that conduit to the next generation to make their path to manhood even easier. And one thing that I've always told Justin is, after you matriculate through the program, he's been a recipient of the Lambda Gamma Gamma Colonel Charles Young Scholarship to help offset some of those costs for college. I always said that the way that you pay us back is to do what?
Come back every Wednesday and impart your wisdom on, the other men that are coming behind you. And I also wanted to touch on one point. One thing I truly loved about Manhood 101 when I was a mentee was to see so many successful African-American men in so many different vast fields. I mean, there's an engineer, there's a retired European basketball player, there's a real estate agents, there's teachers, principals, possibly a doctor, I'm quite sure. So just to know that in high school, like, anything I want is really achievable outside of the, media, being a rapper, being an athlete. It's like I could actually, do cybersecurity because I actually could see it, prior to me actually, trying to grind and actually get it. So that's one thing I truly loved about Manhood 101.
And I don't think there's a better way to close than that. But before we do, I got to give some kudos to the bros that make this possible. The Lambda Gamma Gamma chapter, the Mu chapter, who has the fatherhood initiative and mentoring program. Their mission is clear, intentional, and strategic. It's driven to have 80 active chapters of Omega Psi-Phi engaging their community by mentoring young males. That's the goal of the Fatherhood Initiative. And the Lambda Gamma Gamma chapter, who supports the Assault on Illiteracy program and Manhood 101 for the past year, for the past 8-9 years now, are that financial backing support. All of the males that are enrolled in the program never come out of pocket for anything. The chapter is paid for students to attend the Steve Harvey mentoring camp in Atlanta, Georgia for the past 4 or 5 years. And it is through them that these programs are being able to continue. So on behalf of our boss list, Dr. Reginald Vance, our vice boss list, Timothy Worley, they give your greetings, and they give their greetings and thanks to those who support us to keep these type of programs moving forward. In closing, we thank you all for attending. We thank you all for listening and lending an ear. And if you have a young male interested in mentoring, we ask that you come to Charles Herbert Flowers High School on Wednesday, 7 to 9 p.m. We meet in the upstairs media room every Wednesday, unless after school activities have been canceled. You can contact the men of Omega Psi-Phi Lambda Gamma Gamma chapter at capitalregionqs.org. That is capitalregionqs.org. Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of WBGR Network. Any questions or concerns about what is said should be directed to the show host, whose information will be provided upon request.